Hello and welcome to episode 44 of Beyond a Sermon. I'm your show host, Jim Washock, and we're so happy that you were able to tune in either live right now at 3 p.m. Tuesdays when we're typically recording this program, or perhaps you're catching this on demand. We're so glad that you were able to tune in and enjoy this weekly program, or almost weekly program, where we go beyond this past week's sermon to dig deeper into its message and how we can apply the week's message to our daily lives, at home, at work, at school, in our neighborhoods, and so forth. So you'll notice that this week we've got probably, I think, our largest group ever. There's 5 of us on stage this week. It's so awesome. One of them delivered this past Sunday's sermon. There's our pastor to my far right over here, Jeremy Woltz. Jeremy, thank you so much for the message this past Sunday. But the other 3 that are on the stage with us were, if you caught this past Sunday's sermon, you'll notice that we're also featured in a video clip. And so we felt it most appropriate to get them all together and talk about how WEAG has been instrumental in their leadership development, and then also how they're paying it forward in the ministries that they oversee in helping to develop the next generation of leaders as well. We have tons of questions to go through, but nonetheless, we still welcome your question. So if you're watching live, or even if you're watching on demand, please use the comments area or the chat room to go ahead and provide your question. If you're watching live, you'll be able to get your answer on the spot. And if you're watching on demand later, we will certainly get your question to the person that you intended to have answer. And then we'll have them post their response. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to want to finish the introductions first and foremost. Don't want to assume you know who all these people are. But of course, our pastor for this past Sunday, delivering the sermon, Jeremy Woltz, who I just mentioned.
Hi.
And Jeremy oversees our young adults and small groups ministries. And then I'm not going to say your official title, it's ridiculous, but middle school, go ahead, say it, Jamel.
I'm the Associate Student Ministries Pastor.
Okay, we're trying to get him an acronym, but Jamel Jones oversees that area that he just mentioned.
Primarily middle school, though. Make it easier.
He works a lot with our youth pastor, who also oversees primarily our high school area, John Kelly. And then joining us for our kids ministry pastor, Lisa Eggert, who you got to see just a few weeks ago on the show as we talked about mission trips. So welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you so
Great
much.
to have you here again. So everyone, let's get started with these awesome questions.
We're ready.
We're going to start with you, Jeremy, since you delivered the sermon.
Oh, gosh.
I want to know, and some
scary.
viewers may not know, what brought you to WEAG, and what is one of your earliest memories of someone at WEAG working to develop the leadership skills that you espouse today?
Okay, first and foremost, I'm so grateful to have the question right there.
Yes.
So thank you.
It's just
I'm going to try not to just stare at that while I'm answering the question. Excuse me. So I came to WEAG actually in middle school because of, honestly, primarily friends. I was going to a small Methodist church near where my parents currently live. They live in the same house now for 27 years.
Which coincidentally is very close to where my parents' house is, and they still live there today also.
Yeah. Jamel used to bum rides with me to church. But the reason why I came was because my Methodist church, my mom was a Sunday school teacher, and my sister and I were her only 2 students. It was awful. I mean, I love my mom. She was a great teacher. But it's not the same when, like, your mom is your mom at home and at church. Like, then I came here, and I had friends from middle school who invited me, and I came here, and it's a completely different story because there were so many other middle school people, and there were so many leaders who weren't my parents that were willing to invest and pour into me, which was really amazing.
Yeah.
But think about one of the earliest development leadership things that I can think of, probably in I think it was middle school. There was a Sunday school class that we did called Effect. I think it was called Effect, like AFFECT. And it was really drilling down into middle schoolers to develop their leadership, to develop their spiritual maturity. So, you learned your spiritual gifts early on. You would actually help facilitate like little moments of Bible study at youth group or at Bible studies for the middle schoolers, that kind of thing. So it was just really intentional for anybody who wanted to take it, just to kind of hone your skills at a young age and show you your own potential. And that carried on to high school with a different class called Phase that just went deeper in the same thing. But I think it's a lot like what John and Jamel have been doing called Varsity Leaders, which is another way of identifying leaders in the youth group now and giving them chances to work on it. So it's just kind of built into this church's DNA.
Awesome. Very good. We're going to talk about varsity leaders a little bit later in the program as well. Hop on the other side. John, I got a question for you. Your story's a little bit different. You basically grew up at WEAG. You've been here your whole life. And so I'd like to ask you, what are some ways that you recall WEAG making leadership development opportunities available to you at a younger age that you found instrumental in you serving now today as a youth pastor and for the past 8 years in that role?
Yeah. One, that is such a long question.
Did you repeat it? I forgot the first half.
I had to look at it, and I'm not even answering it.
I got it.
I
Don't
wasn't
worry.
going to call him out, but
It might be long,
Go
but it's
for it,
not
okay.
too long. It's not too long for me to handle it.
Punctuation costs too much nowadays, dude.
Apparently.
They like the inflation rate on periods and commas. It's insane.
In all honesty, there have always been programs that have been set in place to kind of help build leadership and give opportunities, and I somehow dodged a lot of them.
Okay.
Not purposefully, but it wasn't enough for me to be missed, though. My leadership development, in all honesty, the opportunities came through people. And almost in every stage of my life, I had people that saw me and saw value in who I was and who they saw that I could become that I didn't see in myself, but they would give me opportunities through keeping relationship. And later in life, for example, one of them was Bob Laughlin. My first official thing I did here and got paid to do it was to turn every single hard-copied piece of music that our church has ever done in our history, which, if you weren't sure, is 8 file cabinets, 5 drawers each, packed full, and sit in a copy room and scan them all to be digital.
Whoa.
Now,
I
worst
would've walked
job
out.
ever, but it was an opportunity because what I saw through it was Bob went, John, I'm going to find anything for you to be able to do, for you to just be around, so that I can, through relationship, through watching you serve, to be able to like pour into your life. And that's just one of them. Shane's done that. I could name drop so many different people that have really been the opportunity to develop me as a leader.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Lisa, I'm going to turn next to you because you have a ministry role that I'm sure a lot of people would go, there's no way I'd be in that spot, because working with kids takes incredible patience as a leader. And so I'm curious, how did God work through the mentors in your life to help you nurture the leadership skills that help you work with the abundant energy of children and helping them grow towards Jesus?
Yeah,
Questions are getting longer.
We're working on it. It's just wait.
Come
You can't
on,
wait.
Jeremy.
I get paid by the letter, dude.
There you go. You're doing great.
winning.
Hey, can you flip to the next page to finish this question?
Let me take a look at it. No, I'm just
Lisa's
kidding.
like,
Sorry,
what was the
Lisa,
question
no.
now?
I need to look at the question,
The question
for
is
a moment.
57 and a half
Sorry.
words long. I don't remember.
Jim's trying to get paid out here in the streets.
Yeah, I think that my answer would be, even though it's a different question, a little similar, pretty similar to John's actually.
Mhm.
You know, I can't actually say that before I came here I had a lot of mentors that were doing kids stuff. So it's kind of an interesting flip on my life because I didn't grow up in church doing kid stuff as a kid.
Yeah.
I wasn't, when I became a Christian and was in church, I wasn't serving in kid programs. I was actually doing other things. So, so I think similarly to John, it was, you know, when I came here for grad school, it really was just meeting some folks and seeing there was a need in kids programs. So, and then I think it became about people just seeing maybe something in me that I wasn't really seeing or expecting to come from coming to this church to then be a kids pastor, really.
Yeah.
So I think folks like Beth Hamilton and Shane did the same thing for me, just giving me opportunities, I think, and maybe thinking you have a lot of energy, so go hang out with the kids and do your thing. I wasn't even sure what my thing was with them, but I think people recognizing something in me and then giving me opportunities, even if they maybe seemed like a funny job to do or a place to be. I think they just kind of, you know, created places for me to start serving. And then you start to, it's like pieces of a puzzle start to fit together, and then you think, I could do this maybe. So I think people, and just maybe just by creating opportunities for me, was the way that they kind of mentored me into the place that I'm at today.
Yeah. I definitely hear a common theme of like you all being aware of God opening doors and just stepping into faith, that seeing what he was going to do in that moment, in that opportunity.
For sure.
Through people. That's awesome. Jamel, now I want to hop over to you and ask you a question of, in the video clip that aired on Sunday, you mentioned at one point.
So much dancing.
Nothing but that's
All
Jamel's whole
Jamal
job.
does is dance.
His whole job.
I had questions in mind, actually my first draft about the dancing, and I wanted you to like do some more demonstrations for us, but I'm like, this thing's going to be 50 minutes long, and remember, I get paid by the word, not by the minute. So,
Okay. All right.
So in the question, so you mentioned always having a trusted adult nearby. And so can you recall a moment when a seemingly inconsequential leadership training moment from an adult would later prove instrumental in your leadership ability today?
For sure. I'm going to name drop as often as possible
Awesome.
because these people deserve their shine.
Yeah.
All right? So P.D. Jackson,
All right, Petey.
who is still here at our church,
Yes.
thankfully, and is still volunteering in different roles. She was volunteering in a middle school class, and she unfortunately was the only teacher with a lot of way too many middle schoolers. So we were in the class, and she was trying to get the next thing going, but there were people talking, and so she was trying to kind of shush them and settle them. And so I thought, to be a good leader, I would shush along with her, and I'm shushing way too loud, actually more of a disruption than any kind of help. And she looked at me and she said, Jamel, like, I got it. I'm the adult here. And number one, I was incredibly embarrassed and didn't say anything for the rest of the time we were there. But after my embarrassment settled down, I really learned a very helpful lesson there, was that to actually be the best kind of leader, you sometimes need to be a follower. So the most helpful thing I could have done in that moment was just to follow her instructions, to not say anything, to just do what she said, and that would have been the most helpful thing. And so I've actually tried my best to be explicit about that with the middle schoolers and say, hey guys, when I say please be quiet, if you just be quiet and do that, that would be the most helpful thing you could do, instead of raising your voice to shush someone else to make them quiet, which really you're making more noise. And yeah, unfortunately they're not getting it as quickly as I want them to. But that
It's a work in
moment
progress.
right there,
Yeah.
it's a moment of progress, yeah. But that moment right there, just like a quick little kind of redirect, ended up being a really big leadership lesson for me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. This is a question to all of you, so anyone can jump in with an answer to start off with this one. You all have ministry jobs that are so heavily dependent on an army of volunteers. And so I'm curious, how have you found yourself grow as a leader from having to work with so many non-staff people? You can't just crack the whip and tell them, do it or you're fired.
You can try.
They don't stick around for long. So.
That's a really important thing, though. Oftentimes, because we are so invested and we are paid, like, we accidentally believe that everyone else who's in the thing doing the same thing are as invested as we are, when in actuality they aren't. They have real jobs, like they have jobs that actually pay them.
Real
so
jobs.
This is all not
saying
real
our jobs aren't real?
That's not what I was saying. I understand you felt that way, though. So they do have jobs that pay them, and this does not pay. So therefore, I think it's made me a more appreciative kind of leader.
Yeah.
So because I don't have money to give them, I need to give them other kinds of things. I need to give them real opportunities for ministry. I need to not steal all the thunder of the moments for them, so they actually can talk with a student about something important. I need to thank them often. I need to buy them random things. I need to show up to their job with a donut just because I was nearby and thinking of you, like those kind of things. So it's made me more appreciative, I believe, working with people that aren't getting any kind of monetary kind of compensation.
Yeah, I think Jamel hit on something really important there when he said appreciation. I think appreciation's key when it comes to volunteers, because like you said, they're doing it of their own free will. I mean, this is just them having a good heart, wanting to do something good, and none of us would have successful departments or ministries without volunteers. Period. They're amazing. So I think the biggest key for me has always been, like, however grateful I am for them, I need to double it when I try to show it to them, and just go absolutely crazy saying, hey, you are the best thing in the world. You're my greatest resource. You know, you're the most important person in all these things. And by showing them that, you know, you have to, if you're going to tell them that they matter most, you have to treat them as if that's true. So I think appreciation has been a huge part of that for volunteers.
It seems like fostering leadership, even within volunteer roles, is important too. You've all got leaders that are volunteers, right?
Yeah. It's one of the most, working with volunteers is also one of the most humbling things in the fact that you realize like you can't do it all on your own even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And my personality is one to lean on that. Of, no, like I'll get it. I can do this. But over the years, I've realized more and more that you can't. You can't be everything to everyone. And then that's a personal humbling, but then you get humbled by seeing people show up consistently and pouring their lives, pouring their time, their love and attention and everything into this thing, saying, I'm here with you, so where are we going? How are we doing this? And that's such a humbling thing, to have people being willing to do that, and you can't show enough appreciation. That's one of the things that I feel like I could always work more on.
Yeah.
Of letting people know how much you appreciate it, because for me, it's one of the most humbling things about all this.
Lisa, this wasn't in the list, but just kind of branching off this, I just had a thought of, is it any different working with kid leaders that are volunteers, kids that are volunteers, developing leadership skills in them? You know, these things of appreciation and giving them opportunities to grow, is it, I don't know from experience, is it similar or different with kids?
I think something that Jamel said for adults and for kids, but creating opportunities for them to have real ministry experience, I think is something that I continue to work on and try to be better at. We probably all believe this about our leaders. I think I have the best volunteer group up in kids ministry, you know, and I'm sure we all feel that way for our groups of people. They are amazing. And, you know, when they get to be sitting at the altar praying with the kids and have stories of what they've heard, you know, that's when they feel so energized by what they're doing, or when they come back and say they've had an amazing small group. And so I think logistically it's made, as this question, how do you grow, it's made me even a better like organizer, or organizer as in you're organizing your morning intentionally to create these opportunities for your leaders. And so for kids, I feel like it's kind of the same. I mean, we could probably all create a morning for the people that we're serving, like the kids or the young adults. But it's actually a little different of a process to create the morning for your leaders to have the experiences with the kids or the whoever. Yeah. So it's a little different way to organize and be intentional. But even with kids who are volunteers, we're creating opportunities in the 2-year-old class for the 5th graders to not just sit and watch from the outskirts, but to sit at a table and do a coloring sheet. So I really do think it's about figuring out, for whatever group of people you're working with, to figure out ways to create specific moments for your volunteers, be it their 10-year-old or adults, to have that moment directly, not just to be gathering pencils and lining kids up and doing things, but really creating moments so that they are on the front lines of the ministry.
The volunteering's way more than just being a warm body.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I may give like a real quick example. So for instance, in all of our, really our 3 environments, we have like a talk or a sermon, and that is not the most important part of the night. The most important part of the night is the small group conversation they have after the talk. So I'm guilty of it many times, but every second I go over my talk, I am taking away from their most important moments. Because the way that it works, like you can't make that longer. So I need to organize myself so that I'm on time, so that they get all of what they really came there to do and what's the most important part of the night. So that's just an example of that we struggle with all the time.
So if we had small groups after service on Sunday, that might cause some...
What if? Now the sermon's over, everyone break into
You're
groups.
good,
Not
Shane.
gonna
Do what you want to do. Do what you want to do,
Just
Shane.
kidding, just a little, to see if you'd want. But a note to our viewers, if you are watching, again, just a reminder, you have an opportunity to go ahead and ask a question that you might have for any of these four pastors, whether you're watching now on Tuesday afternoon live, or even if you're watching on demand. Of course, if you're watching live, it's the best opportunity at 3 p.m. Tuesdays to get your questions in, because they can be answered on the spot. So just use the chat area to do that. Jeremy, your sermon was talking about leadership lessons from Timothy. And one thing, as part of your sermon, you listed a number of names that were influential in your leadership development. And nearly all of them, as far as I know, were volunteers. From the list of names, I didn't see, maybe there's one or two staff maybe in there. What does that say to you, and should say to all WEAGers watching what you had to say about the power of God's work through volunteers?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I think is so influential about volunteers is they're completely not obligated to do what they're doing. There's no obligation whatsoever, which means that they're doing it because they're genuinely interested in whoever it is that they're serving. So, for me, like I even mentioned with, having my mom as my Sunday school teacher, I love my mom. I hit the jackpot with moms.
Love your mom too.
Thank
It's
you.
great.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome. Love you, Mom. Hi.
My mom's cool too. So.
Well, we're gonna have a mom off in this place.
Well, I'll have
But-
cool mom.
Hey,
Okay, we
but
got that out.
She's obligated to me.
If you have a cool mom, say so in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. Put a hands up.
Shout out to the mom.
But she's obligated to me in a sense. I'm her son, right?
Yeah.
She's stuck with me. So if she does things, you just know after a while, it's like, okay, but you're my mom. Like, you have to say nice things. You have to compliment me. When you run into somebody who has no obligation to you, but they still give you the time of day, that has such a powerful influence on, at the time I was young, I was a teenager. That meant so much. But even now, as a 30-year-old, I've got my first kid on the way. I've been married now for almost 5 years. And even now, when I have people who are older than me take me seriously and give me the time of day for no discernible reason, it immediately draws me in. And I'm like, okay, I want to lean into this. So I think volunteers actually have an incredible opportunity, an incredible position over the lives of the people they serve to make a more profound impact than the person that happens to be on stage singing or speaking or whatever it is.
Yeah. I think this opportunities at WEAG for leadership development to happen throughout so many different ages is something that not everybody's necessarily aware of. So I just want to very briefly go across you all and highlight just a few of these things, which is mostly making viewers aware of it. So starting younger, Lisa, you have a leadership development program for fifth graders. Can you provide viewers that may not be familiar with it as to what that is, what's it called, what's the program do, and maybe highlight just a quick story of how that's impacted kids?
Yeah, so when I started here, that was one of the first things that I kind of took note of, is that our fifth graders are kind of, they're the oldest of the elementary crew and just a little maybe under-challenged or not as equipped as they could be to do more, and so after my first year of working here, that was kind of one of the first things that I wanted to spend a little more intentional time on. So we have a program now that is in its 9th year.
Okay.
It's called Step Out. And so the first class that went through Step Out, they're in their freshman year of college now.
Wow.
And so
Pretty cool.
we are up to 112 students, including this year's fifth graders that have gone through it. And so basically it is more than just over the year fifth graders can come to it. So they actually apply and have an interview, and just a little more ownership on their part and their parents' part to make sure that they know it is a bigger commitment than just showing up if you want. And so basically basically it's a small group. It's not small this year, but for lack of a better term, a small group that kind of starts together in September and meets throughout the school year. And so it's primarily based on learning how to study the Bible, different leadership development techniques that we go through, different evangelistic tools, learning how to share their own testimony, learning how to share the gospel in a relational context, and also a serving component, some different opportunities to serve here as in the preschool. So these 5th graders are able to actually go down and be with Ashlyn in the preschool and serve. And then when opportunities come up at, say, a nursing home or Stop Hunger Now, certain things like that they're able to help with as well. So we kind of focus on those types of things: Bible study, leadership, evangelism, and service. And we just spend that time together for a whole year. Jamel's done it with me for the last 7, I think, or so years. And you really just see this amazing growth after a year long, and they're able to communicate more clearly. And we tell them from the beginning, we're not doing this so that they all become pastors or, professional communicators, but we do have a responsibility to be able to communicate our story and the gospel, and just be able to have relationships with people. And so the things that we think are most important and that we want to equip our kids with, we spend that year doing. And I mean, one story, I feel like we have so many, you know, so I think just every year seeing the ways that they are growing outside of this building. Just this year, several of the kids in the Step Out program got their 5th grade character award in their public school, or you hear that they invited some of their teachers to the kids show that we have, or certain things like that. I just feel like I see a greater boldness and a confidence in them. And while we know things change so much for them in middle school, it still, I think, gives them a foundation to kind of restart with, And so I think I see it every week. And they're serving here. I just a few weeks ago saw a 5th grader playing with her friends, and there was a new kid coming in who was visibly upset. They're not even having to be told anymore. They get up and walk right to the door and grab the kid and play with them. And, they're just starting to figure out that it doesn't have to be about them and their friends, and that they can help out and play Connect 4 with a 1st grader, and that might not be cool, but they know that it matters, and so they're doing it. And so seeing things like that just encourage us to know that what we are pouring into their lives is taking some sort of effect. So.
That's so cool. Cool. John, I want to explore in a moment how that continues into middle school and high school.
Yeah.
But we do have a viewer question. So Nikki will be able to put that on the screen. What is the most challenging part of working at a church? What's the most rewarding part? And what makes to stick around WEAG?
What makes us? It's probably us.
Us, probably.
That's good.
Yeah. So who would like to take a shot at this?
I want to know who
question?
SCC is.
What makes you stick around WEAG?
Nice.
There we go. There we go.
Thank you for your questions, SCC.
Yes.
Man, what's the most challenging part of working? In all honesty,
Nothing. It's awesome.
Yeah, really.
He's a liar.
I'll do that
It is
one.
awesome, but there's some challenging parts too.
I'll take that one. It's this, like, our faith is so important to us as individuals, and when it's almost your job to do your faith, you never can do enough. There is a constant feeling of, I don't have enough to give.
Yeah.
But this is my job.
Like you can't punch out, right?
My job is to point people towards the life-changing, life-freeing truth of who God and Jesus Christ is. But I don't have enough skill, talent, time, energy to do it as much as I think I should. And we all feel that tension at times, I know, because we talk about it. So I know for me, that's probably the most challenging.
Yeah.
But within that challenge, I also know I'm not the answer. I know that it's right. I can't do enough. Because Jesus Christ is the only one that can fill the gap in people's lives. So whatever I can do to point them towards that is what's going to be best. But it is hard to walk that balance sometimes. And
sure. Yeah.
that's what's most rewarding. When you do something to point towards that, and you see someone's life literally changing in front of you,
Yeah.
there's nothing greater.
So cool.
Just to pick up right there on what most rewarding part, for me, I mean, I can't speak for all of you guys, but same thing that John just said, it's the moment you see someone get it. The moment somebody you've been pouring into, investing into, I mean, even if you haven't actually done that much, but you get to witness the moment that they really grasp what Jesus did for them, and then they start to live out of that.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and it's like you see the fruit, and sometimes it's a while between harvests. Sometimes it's a while. You see the fruit in this person, and you love it because you know it might be a dry spell for a while. So you just latch on to those moments, and you remember all the people that you're like, I remember witnessing the moment so and so just got it.
Yeah.
And that carries you through sometimes for years. It is so powerful and rewarding, and I mean, I can list off names of the people that I constantly go back in my mind for inspiration when I need it.
Yeah.
Well, name a few.
Yeah.
Just drop some names real quick.
I don't want to put them on the spot. Like, I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to put them on the spot.
Yeah,
when
it's not-
this
it's
person
not as-
totally turned their life away from
Yeah, they were such a wreck, and then all of a sudden,
I guess that one's not as positive a one. Well, since I've started talking, I was thinking about what makes you stick around at WEAG, and it's authentically there are a million reasons, but the one I think is most important in my mind right now is the opportunity to truly make a difference in people's lives. So I have many acquaintances who also work in churches and are in the student department at least, and they do not have the same opportunities that I have here. They're just a middle school pastor, or they only work with kids, and there isn't much opportunity, even within the thing that they love, to do other things and more and different. And we have that here.
That's cool.
And that's an incredible opportunity that is authentically rare. My friends, when we talk about our jobs, there are certain components of what I'm able to do here that they are very, very envious of.
Well, as a WEAGer for 24 years, I'm glad you all stick around. So,
we're glad you're here too, Jay.
even if it is for number 2 on the list, and the fact that Mac and Jeff always keep the basket of candy in the business office full.
They
That
do
is
keep
true.
it full.
So that will
Mac
Those
just
Reese's
got back from
cups are there.
BJ's with more candy today.
yeah,
so there we go.
that will keep people sticking around. with
Mac
WEAG.
is an
Awesome.
unsung hero of this place.
Max,
Just throw that out
shout
there.
out to you and the candy.
That's
And
right.
Jeff.
No, but we are glad that you guys stick around for sure. Nikki, do we have another question? No? Okay. You didn't change the color of the light, so I just thought I'd ask. So that's okay. That's all right.
Nobody
just
at home
wanted
knows
to
what
be
that
sure. So, John, coming back to what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
So we've
One
got
way.
this awesome program for fifth graders
Absolutely.
to develop leadership. They move into middle school and high school. It doesn't end there. A lot of students in those middle school and high school groups then help out still in children's church or in other areas. What does it mean to you to have these students serving in this capacity, and how has the services, retreats, small groups, et cetera, of youth group help them prepare as leaders?
There's this this shift that happens from kids to youth, where the foundation that Lisa pours in is unbelievable. That seeing the kids that have been poured into for years and years and years and then come up into youth, you see that foundation that's been laid. But even for them, there are huge physical and emotional and everything shifts that happen. And you see it in middle school and especially in high school, where there's a turn from I have my parents' faith, or I have my kids' pastor's faith, or my small group leader's faith, and then them starting to go, well, but what's my faith? And that time in life is where it happens. And a key part to it is serving, because serving is kind of the activation of what you believe. It's taking what you believe and then deciding to now do something with it, which is why we always encourage so strongly for middle schoolers, high school, start serving. Serve with the kids. Serve with, it's not because we need all of these volunteers. We do.
We do.
But I wasn't done. We do.
Yes.
But it's a greater purpose than that. Because when a middle schooler or a high schooler is sitting around with a group of kids and seeing that them taking time to invest in others, them taking time to love someone else, them taking time to hear the needs of someone else, to be there for someone else, it's an activation of the concept of Jesus saying, love those like I have loved you.
Yeah.
And so,
And they're amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just filling spots. They're some of the best volunteers
Yeah.
that we have, are the youth. They
That's
have
awesome.
energy, a different perspective, that, and the kids we of course need adults, and but the kids are obsessed, with the youth and how cool they are, and they, they are the energy and the attention of our kids' classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
So really, it means everything.
and for any teenagers that are watching, there are so many opportunities to step in around
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, not just in children's church, but all over the place. We love, on the tech
Yeah.
team here at
Yeah.
church, we love having teenagers.
Yeah.
Because you guys are fearless with buttons and technology. So please sign up. We have another viewer question, but I do want to quickly first finish this category and come to you, Jamel, because just before kids graduate from high school, as juniors and as seniors, they have the opportunity to participate in what's called Varsity Leaders program. And so I wanted to ask you if you could just tell viewers real quick what that program is. And I'll just have you describe it and so forth versus reading my very lengthy question about it.
He's
Go
so
ahead.
self-conscious about his questions.
I'm thinking about
That
it.
was a short one.
I'm reformulating all my questions in my mind as I read them.
Jim, your
Thanks,
questions are
Jeremy.
awesome, dude. Just let them out.
Well,
Go
to
ahead.
answer that question, I'm actually really going to be heavily quoting John Kelly because he's the one who really frames this program. So the way the varsity leaders work is the juniors and seniors in high school get the opportunity to kind of be apprentice small group leaders, who are the most important components of our ministries for the middle schoolers. And the thing that John always says is that we want a student to be able to see the next phase of life for them and what it looks like to follow Jesus in that phase. So let's just say I'm a 6th grade dude small group leader. They get to look at me and say, wow, when I'm married and with kids, this is how I could follow Jesus. The difficulty is, and limitation is that I'm like, depending on how you want to count it, 3 life phases away from them. But when it's a high schooler, when it's a junior, it's literally 1 life phase away. And they can see, wow, really, really soon I can be like him. And that is what it does for our middle schoolers. And it develops such an incredible accountability to our high schoolers because the middle schoolers are right across the hall.
Yeah.
And then they're right next to you when we worship. And so you know that they are going to be paying attention to what you do. So it's an encouragement for them to continue to point their own selves towards Jesus and then in turn point the middle schoolers in a different kind of way than I could or another volunteer, different phase further or maybe a little bit closer to them could.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for setting up these leadership development opportunities through the different age groups. Let's go ahead and take the viewer question, Nikki. So at your school career day, did you say, I'm going to be a pastor when I grow up?
No.
When did you know that was your path?
Is SEC
Jamel's
a
the
person,
only
or is
one
this just
that's-
like a
I
general
really did.
acronym?
No, that's probably their handle they picked on.
I like it. I just
on-
was curious.
Yes.
They're asking great
On
questions.
WEAG TV, people could be whoever they want. We did have someone be Batman one week on a Sunday morning. It was
yes.
awesome.
Ooh, that's pretty awesome.
incredible.
Susan Tuning's middle name.
Susan
Oh,
Catherine
Is it
Tuning.
Susan?
Found
Is it?
you.
That was good.
Maybe.
Good job,
If it
Lisa.
is, shout out to you, Tuning. And to answer the question,
Yeah.
I did actually. In 8th grade, I wanted to be a pastor.
Yeah. Awesome.
So that's when I first thought, and I really knew sitting in the worship center on the side balcony when I was a junior. That's when I really knew.
Well, I was homeschooled, and I didn't have a school career
Have
day.
career day at homeschool.
But if I did, but if I did have a school career day, no. I honestly, at no point in my
You didn't play pastor
youth
growing up?
life, I didn't look at Micah and be like, one day I'm going to be youth pastor.
Yeah.
You, Micah. Not at all. But it was just a process of,
You were a business major in college.
yeah,
weren't you?
I was thinking I was going to go into pharmaceutical sales or something.
we go.
But then in college,
Breaking
Not too
Bad.
late, John.
I know, there's still time. But then in college, it was just something. And it's honestly even linked to the people here and the serving here that as I served as a youth leader for forever. Before I worked here, I graduated high school and was like, I'm going to be a youth leader. And so through serving and all of that, God just gripped my heart and something happened. I can't put it into a perfect word, but no, this was totally out of my plans.
All right. Very good.
Yeah, I don't think I had a career day. I was in public school, but I still don't remember if I had a career day. If I did, I definitely wasn't thinking that, though. I wasn't in church. I didn't have that. Very oddly enough, I did play church, like some kids play school.
Yeah.
That's
But I
still
think I
kinda
maybe
bizarre.
just saw that like on TV or something. But
We're good. Close it up.
I mean, But no, I
Did you
wasn't.
collect an offering?
No, I served communion to my
Oh,
stuffed
yes.
animals. My Teddy
Communion.
Ruxpin and my Bronco Bear get some body and blood. But no, I didn't. I don't have like a specific moment. Like him, I feel like after I became a Christian and was a part of a campus ministry, I started feeling like I was being called into ministry.
Yeah.
But that's always kind of been pretty broad. I don't know what that even looks like in the next 5 years. So I don't feel like I really have ever had this, you're going to be this thing. But I've always felt pretty certainly that I was called to ministry, broad picture, and then kind of just like, well, we'll see what God has for me today and tomorrow and next year possibly. So, but no career day, I don't think.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Same for me. I did not say pastor. I wanted to be a astronaut, veterinarian, firefighter, all the things kids want to be.
All the staples.
And I was a volunteer firefighter in college for a few years, so I got to get that itch scratched, which is great. But one thing John said that was really important, it was volunteering that shaped my mind. I mean, when I graduated college, I was a salesman and a waiter simultaneously. I did both to pay the bills. But it was a time I spent volunteering here that began to shape within me the desire to do ministry. So I just think that's another thing towards volunteers is, man, God is working in you while you're volunteering to point you towards the path he has for you.
Yeah. Great. Well, I didn't want to be a pastor. I feel like I should answer the question. I was going to be a meteorologist. So this low pressure system over here over Chicago is moving to the east, and 10 years. I was going to be a meteorologist. So go figure. We are almost out of time, so I'm going to have to unfortunately skip a few questions. But thank you so much to the viewers for hopping in with a few of these. One thing I do want to touch on, Jeremy, you talked about great leaders are great followers and so forth. You oversee our small groups area and our young adults. Can you speak to how this plays out? You see this playing out?
Yeah, well, one of the things I think is amazing is, as you've already heard, leadership development is a lifelong process here at WEAG. I mean, from the moment you're in elementary school, it starts. So when we get to see leaders that grew up here, it's not a surprise. I think some people are like, oh my gosh, who knew? We knew. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant, but we knew because we watched them go through the process and be developed every step of the way. Yeah. And so it's really amazing to see that happen. And there are even a few that you can tell stand out where you're like, that's one that we're going to keep an eye on because we know they're going to do something incredible. So that's been great. But then a lot of it too is, man, leaders aren't leading if they're doing it alone. By definition, leaders need to be with other people. So anybody who has leadership skills, I mean, God has given that to you so that you can serve others. And it's amazing to see people kind of grasp that and begin to realize, wow, I have this innate ability. Where can I use it for the most good? And that's small groups is a huge place where I get to witness that play out. And it's really rewarding to see.
All right. And a final question, because we go off the air in 1 minute. So to wrap up, you set up what we're having this coming week where Shane's going to revisit and explain WEAG 3.0. And so I just want to ask you, how might we, all of us WEAGers, keep in the forefront of thought how our leadership skills are not actually about us, but about God and others as we move into this new phase of WEAG?
I wasn't sure you were going to finish the question before we ran out of time.
No, we can cut out half of it.
I think one really important thing to know is it's not Shane's vision. Right. It's the vision God put on Shane's heart. Yeah. And that's just important because whatever the changes that are, whatever they are, it's God's plan. Yeah. And that gets me excited because God's plan cannot be thwarted. It cannot be overwhelmed or stopped. So that's huge. And the other part of it is just my cheesy rhyme of, for others Christ to see, my interest cannot be about me. Imagine what a church of 1,200 people can do if all of us are others interested. If we're all putting the interest of Christ and the interest of others above our own, I will be blown away. I know we all will by what God can accomplish through that. So everyone prepare yourselves to be excited.
Awesome. WEAG 3.0 this coming Sunday at 10 a.m. Join us on site or online to hear that very important message. Thank you all for being able to answer these questions.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Questions.
We had some left, so I might post these on the video with the video online at weag.church and ask you to perhaps add some answers to them there. All right.
Booyah.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a blessed week.